Hey y'all, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Taya and this is Taya's Turning Pages. So by this angle and this setup, you can tell that this video is going to be a little bit different. I feel like this might be one of the only vlog style videos that I film during Vlogmas or Bookmas, whatever you want to call it, just because I really don't have the capacity or the time to film vlogs and upload them every single day. I wish I could, but because of my job and just other stuff, I can't, unfortunately. Maybe one day, but for right now, this is what we got. So in this video, I will be filming a unhaul, and it's going to be more casual, more lax, more of a vlog style, just because I wanted to switch it up. I never really do these type of videos. I feel like for my unhauls, I decided to say why not and just do it this way. So yeah, but before we get started with that, I did want to show you guys the new Nespresso flavors that I got. So I don't film vlogs on this channel like I already mentioned, and so you guys don't really know too much about me. I feel like when it comes to my current favorite things or just things that I'm loving at the moment. And I recently got a Nespresso machine during the Black Friday and Cyber Monday / Cyber Week sales, and I haven't been able to stop using it or shut up about it since. I actually have the Nespresso Virtuo Plus machine, I think that's what it's called. You guys know that Nespresso has like 100 different machines, so I just got the one that was on sale and that had the best reviews. But I wanted to show you guys the new flavors that I picked up from Nespresso's website. I'm still trying to figure out what I actually like and what I don't like from the Nespresso line, and I realized that I do like sweet coffee. That's just me. I've always had a sweet tooth, and when it comes to my drinks, especially coffee, it's no different. And so I was on their website and I found 2 different flavors that sound really good. I'll show you guys that in a second. I'm gonna do a cute little unboxing and then make this coffee, and then we'll finally get started with the unhaul. It's really funny because I never ordered from Nespresso's website before until like recently, and they sent me tracking updates, and literally the delivery driver took a picture of himself delivering my Nespresso pods to my apartment complex's front desk. And I just think that is the most hilarious thing in the world, because it's like, all of this for some coffee? But I do appreciate their customer service. Like, you never get door-to-door service like that, so I do appreciate it, but still funny nonetheless. So right here I have 2 different flavors. So right here I have the gingerbread flavor. I'm not sure if this is one of Nespresso's newest flavors, like for this holiday season, or if this is something that they bring back year-round. But either way, I read the description and like the coffee notes and the flavor and everything like that, and it sounded like it was going to taste really good, so I got this one. And I also picked up their caramel cookie flavor. I'm not sure which one I want to try right now. I'm kind of in the mood for the gingerbread one just because I want to see if it's good, but I just wanted to show you guys these 2 flavors that I got from Nespresso. No one asked, but I'm trying to like do a little bit more in these vlogs. Okay, it's time for a taste test. So as you can see, I have a straw here and usually I always have to use a straw for my drinks, no matter what it is, whether it's hot, cold, coffee, wine, juice, it really doesn't matter. Because I have Invisalign and because I have to wear it for like 22 hours a day, I try not to take it out when I don't really have to. And so you're technically not supposed to do this, but like myself and other Invisalign patients, we kind of cheat like this, and I will usually use a straw to drink any of my drinks if I don't feel like taking out my trays right then and there. And so obviously once I'm done, I'm gonna take out my trays and brush my teeth and like clean my trays, of course, but sometimes I just like don't feel like taking them out right away. So this is what I, as well as a lot of other people, do, and you have to use straws for everything. And I know that this isn't a glass straw or a metal straw. I know, I'm sorry, I don't have any right now. I need to order some more because the ones that I did have are old and gross now. So I will be ordering more glass straws very soon, so I'm sorry for the plastic, but I have no other options. But I'm about to try this now. I hope it's good. It smells good, but I'm also a little nervous. So we're gonna give it a try. And like I said, this is the gingerbread flavor. So let's see. That's actually really good. Hold on, y'all. Hold on. Wait. This is actually pretty good. That's really good. I definitely understand why this flavor is gingerbread. It definitely has that little aftertaste that I feel like gingerbread cookies have. And I love gingerbread cookies. That's another reason why I picked up this flavor. And I feel like all of the ingredients that I used, so that syrup as well as that Natural Bliss almond vanilla creamer, I feel like both of those mixed with this taste really good. So I definitely will be making this more in the future. And if I had to rate this on a scale of 1 to 10, I would give it a 8.5. We'll go with an 8.5, not a full 10, because I feel like there's probably other creamers and syrups that would go way better with this. But since I'm working with what I got, I feel like this still turned out really good. I will leave the link to this flavor down below in my description box, as well as the caramel cookie, just in case you do have an espresso and you're interested. Obviously not sponsored, but like I said, I haven't been able to shut up nor stop using my Nespresso since I've gotten it. So anytime I can plug it or talk about it, I'm going to. This is what my reading corner looks like right now. I know it looks a mess, and that's because I had to move the chair and the table out of the way so I can actually like get to my shelves. But I'm sure you can notice I still have my fall decor up. Marcus and I did stop at our storage unit today and picked up our Christmas decorations, so we will be decorating regardless because Marcus really loves decorating for Christmas, so we're gonna do it. This will be getting swapped out at some point, just not right now. And down there are packages, and I will be filming a book unboxing video, so definitely make sure you stay tuned for that. Okay, so as you guys can see, I have a lot of books that I plan on unhauling, and I will go through each one of them and explain why very quickly. This lighting is atrocious. I'm so sorry, y'all. I never sit on the floor over here in this corner, so this is a first for me. But it's a Sunday, it's raining outside, and it's getting darker. So like I said, this video is just going to be very lax and very casual, and I'm not mad at it, to be honest. Anyways, let's get started on all of the books that I plan on getting rid of. So I'm gonna go in no particular order. I'm literally just going to grab whatever books I see first and then go from there. Okay, so the first book that I have here is Intercepted by Alexa Martin. So I tried to read this book a while ago and I just couldn't get into it. I think it was the writing style I just wasn't vibing with at the time. And it's really a shame because this book reminds me of the TV show The Game, and I was obsessed with The Game when I was growing up. So I really hate the fact that I can't get into this book, and there's just no reason for me to keep it on my bookshelf. The next two books that I have here are part of a series, and it is the If I Stay series by Gail Foreman, and I was obsessed with the If I Stay movie with Chloe Grace Moretz or Moretz. I never know how to pronounce her last name, but I really loved this movie when I was younger, and I didn't know that that film was a book to film adaptation. And so I was on Depop one day and I came across these books and I was like, oh, I can read these and see if this one in particular compares to the movie. And then this is the sequel, and we never got a follow-up film. but I just know I'm never going to get around to these and actually read them. These were published a while ago, and I just feel like I'm probably not going to gel with the writing style, and honestly I just don't really care anymore, so I'm gonna get rid of these. The next book that I have here is Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney. So this is a book of the month pick, and this was their August book of the month pick. I read this back in September, and I gave it, I think, a 3.5 out of 5 stars. It was fun, it was entertaining, I had a great time reading it, but it wasn't my favorite thriller, and it wasn't my favorite Alice Feeney thriller. I just felt like the killer reveal and just the true nature of what was going on when it came to the Darker family was very goofy and unserious, and I just felt like it could have went in a different direction, and it just didn't. So I'm gonna get rid of this, and hopefully someone else loves this more than I did. The next book that I have here is another thriller, and it is Breathless by Amy McCulloch. So I am actually one of the few that enjoyed Breathless by Amy McCulloch. I know a lot of people did not like this book, and I understand why. There is a lot of talk about mountain climbing and what it means to be a successful mountain climber and alpinist and all of that. So if you're not even remotely interested in mountain climbing, then I don't recommend picking up this book because there are a lot of details about the activity. But overall, I thought this was a solid thriller, and I was actually gripped when I was reading it. And I actually didn't mind the mountain climbing talk, but I know a lot of people didn't like it, so yeah. Either way, I don't need this on my shelf anymore because I don't reread thrillers, and I definitely don't plan on rereading this one. If I do, it will more than likely be through audiobook, but for right now, I'm just like not interested in having this on my shelf anymore. The next couple of books that I have here are nonfiction. And the first one that I have here is My Story by Elizabeth Smart. So the reason why I'm getting rid of this, as well as a lot of these nonfiction books that I have over here, is simply because I like to read my nonfiction books or listen to my nonfiction books through audiobooks, and more specifically through Audible. So I just prefer to digest my nonfiction reads that way. I just feel like it's a lot easier to get through them, and I feel like when I do read nonfiction books physically, I feel like I'm back in school and I'm reading a textbook, and I just don't feel like doing that, and that's just not the vibe that I'm going for. So I am going to read this book at some point, but it's definitely going to be through audiobook. The next book that I have here is A Stolen Life by J.C. Dugard. I'm unhauling this for the same reasons that I'm unhauling the Elizabeth Smart book. Like I said, I listen to my nonfiction books through Audible nowadays. The next book that I have here is another nonfiction book, and it is I'll Drink to That, A Life in Style with a Twist by Betty Halbright. I'll listen to this via audiobook. The next book that I have here is Black Skinhead, Reflections on Blackness and Our Political Future by Brandy Collins Dexter. And I want to read this, but like I said, Audible is the way to go for me. I love the cover of this book, and the title is very interesting. I remember when I first got this in the mail from the publisher, and I was like, what in the world is this title? But I am intrigued to read this. And the last book that I have that was in that pile is State of Terror by Hillary Clinton and Louise Penny. So I was so excited to buy this book when it first came out, and I don't know why I did that, because I probably should have just got the audiobook for this, because I just don't plan on reading this, you guys, like physically. This book is chunky, as you can see, and it's almost 500 pages, and I just don't understand why thriller authors feel like they need to write thrillers that are more than 400 pages. I just don't get it. Can you really drag out a mystery for that long? I don't know, but I don't have any intention of reading this physically. If anything, I will be listening to this via audiobook, because I still am interested in this, and I think the plot and the premise for this is really interesting, and I'm curious to see how Hillary Clinton writes or co-writes a thriller. Okay, so now we're gonna move on to the second pile here.
Oh gosh, it's falling. And it just fell.
All right, well, since we're on the Hillary Clinton train, the next book that I plan on unhauling is Living History, Hillary Clinton. And this is one of Hillary Clinton's memoirs, and I found this at a thrift store, and I think I only got this for like 50 cents. And the reason why I got this was because at first, when I started my library and I was trying to fill my bookshelves, I thought I was going to have a women's only bookshelf, and the books were going to consist of books written by powerful women or just books that are about women empowerment. And unfortunately, that never happened, because as you can see, I have way too many books and not enough space. So that shelf was short-lived. And I just, like I said, don't plan on reading this physically. If anything, it'll be audiobook. The next book that I have here is another Hillary Clinton book, and it should be the last one, and it is Hillary Clinton, What Happened? So I think this is another memoir of hers, but this one really goes into detail about what happened during the 2016 presidential election between her and former President Donald Trump. And I am really interested in reading this one. Out of this one and this one, I'm more so interested in reading this one, because I would love to know what her insight and what her perspective was on how the election turned out and what her thoughts were. Like I said, I'm not really here to read it physically, and this book is really long, so we're gonna get rid of it. I do like the fact that it is a floppy paperback. I think I also got this from the thrift store the same time I got this one, and I think I got this one for 50 cents too, so not a bad deal. Next book that we have here is a horror book, and it is It by Stephen King. So this one pains me because I really swore up and down that I was going to read it one day. I really thought I was going to become a Stephen King girly, and I only read one book by him still to this day, which is The Long Walk, which is my favorite book of his, and I just don't know when I'm actually going to pick up another Stephen King novel. I feel like if I do pick up another one, it will more than likely be The Shining, just because that is one of his most popular and most notable works, and I've always wanted to know the story of The Shining. So that probably will be the next Stephen King book I pick up someday, but I just know I'm never going to get around to it. Like, why is this book so goddamn long? I have no idea. It's 1,000+ pages, and I've read reviews and heard people say this book has a really graphic, sexually explicit scene, and y'all know I'm all about smut, but not the kind that is in this book. So I will be unhauling this because I just don't see myself ever reading it. And the next book that I have here is another nonfiction book, and it's a memoir, and it is Beautiful Country by Qian-Julie Wang, and I really do want to read this book at some point. I feel like that's the reoccurring theme here for all of these books. Like, I do want to read a lot of them, I just don't want to read them physically. But this book I really do want to read because I follow Qian-Julie Wang on Instagram, and I really love her content, and she just seems like a really sweet author, and so I do want to read this at some point. The next book that I have here is a YA novel, and it is The Girls I've Been by Tess Sharp. So this is another one that pains me. I remember when I went to Barnes & Noble and I read the synopsis for this book, and I was hooked. Okay, this book sounded so interesting because this is about a young girl who had a mother for a con artist, and so her mom taught her pretty much everything that she knew, and so she herself became a con artist. But I think she tried to leave that part of her past behind until one day her and her friends are in a bank, and I think the bank is like stuck up by robbers, and basically our main character here has to tap back into her con artist ways so that way she and her friends and everybody else in the bank can get out of this situation alive. So even though the plot and the premise still sounds interesting, I just don't see myself reading this anytime soon, and I just don't need it on my bookshelf. Even though I love the cover, I just never ever feel motivated to pick up this book. Whenever I do look at my bookshelves and look for something else to read, I always look at this and then I look away and then look for something else. So I think that tells me that I need to get rid of this. The next book that I have here I feel like is going to upset a lot of people because I know that this is a book community darling, but I just don't have any interest at all, and it is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. And I bought this book, I want to say maybe 2 years ago at this point, and I have never ever felt inclined to pick it up. Never. Whenever I see people talking about this book in their videos, like their wrap-ups, their TBRs, their hauls, I yawn. I just don't care about this trilogy anymore, which is a shame because I'm one of the few that actually really enjoys YA books and YA thrillers, but this one's just not calling to me. It never has. I only picked it up because so many people were talking about it, and I was like, okay. I got it from Book Outlet, I'm pretty sure, and it was dirt cheap, so I was like, why not? But this has been sitting on my shelf collecting dust for 2 years, so we're just gonna unhaul it. The next two books that I have here are going to be fun to talk about because one of them was a recent read and the other one was a DNF. We'll start with a recent read. We Had to Remove This Post by Hannah Berkowitz. I'll leave my November wrap up linked up above in the card somewhere, but I read this book back in November and it was a solid 3-star. The plot and the premise of this book are really interesting. The story follows a woman named Kaylee who works as a content moderator, and you pretty much just follow Kaylee as well as her coworkers throughout the story of being content moderators and how that fucks up your mind essentially. And so I enjoyed the book. It was okay. It just wasn't as revolutionary or groundbreaking as I felt like it was marketed out to be. I felt like a lot of people were like, wow, this is like a riveting account, da 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 da, but I don't know, it was just kind of a straight shot plot. Like, people work effed up jobs and get effed up in the process. Like, that's kind of what it was, and I don't know, I just didn't love it the way that I thought I was going to love it, but it was still an interesting story nonetheless. I'm definitely looking at the role of a content moderator more critically now because I don't know if human beings really should be working in a role like that. Like, I understand that we need content moderated, but to scroll through violent, graphic, disgusting content for 8+ hours and flagging it day in and day out, I just feel like that's just a recipe for disaster, you know? But either way, I am going to unhaul this. It's a shame though because I love this cover, but again, not a good enough reason to keep it on my shelf. The next book that I have here is another one that I feel like is going to draw a lot of controversy and maybe a lot of opinions and comments, but it has to be done. And the book that I'm referring to is Bunny by Mona Awad. I tried to read this book earlier this month in December, and y'all, I DNF'd about maybe 40% through. Come to the front, please come to the podium. If you have read Bunny and if you have enjoyed this book or given it a 5-star, please tell me why. I need a full explanation and thesis and dissertation in my comments to explain how you were able to get through this book and why you enjoyed it so much, because I just couldn't wrap my head around what was going on and why any of this mattered. Like, I couldn't understand. I need this out of my library expeditiously. Like, I need it out now, today. But I don't know if I will be picking up anything else by Mona Awad, just because if any of her other books, like All's Well, is like this, I have no interest in reading it. I'm so sorry. I just don't. I feel like Otessa Moshfegh is going to be the only author who writes these kind of unhinged women's stories that I'll actually read from, because I didn't hate My Year of Rest and Relaxation. It wasn't a perfect read, and I think I only gave it a 3 or a 3.5 out of 5 stars, but I still think about that book to this day, and I understood exactly what I was reading. This book, I have no idea. So yeah, this needs to go. I will be talking about this more in depth in my December wrap up, so make sure you stay tuned. But I need this out. I need it. I need it gone. Okay, and the last book that I have here in this pile is another nonfiction book, and it is Teeth: The Story of Beauty, Inequality, and the Struggle for Oral Health in America by Mary Otto. So I read this book back in September, and because I am an Invisalign patient, like I've already mentioned, I have become really interested in teeth as well as oral health. And so when I saw this book on Amazon, I figured I would pick it up and give it a read. And I actually started reading this physically, and then I decided to switch to the audiobook, and I enjoy the audiobook a lot more. So I'm going to get rid of this just because I already read it and I don't see myself returning to it and or rereading it physically. Okay, so now we're moving on to the last pile of books here. The next couple of books are all nonfiction books, so I'm not going to really go into any detail as to why I'm unhauling them. You guys already know. But the first book that I have here is Talking as Fast as I Can by Lauren Graham. For those of you who do not know, Lauren Graham is an actress, and she most notably played Lorelai Gilmore on Gilmore Girls. And like mostly everyone else in the world, I'm obsessed with Gilmore Girls. I love the show. I've rewatched it 100 times. I heard the audiobook for this is way better, so that's the route I'm gonna go. The next book that I have here is Brain on Fire: My Month of Madness by Susanna Cahalan. This was a really good book. This was so poignant and so terrifying that I couldn't stop thinking about it for like 2 weeks straight after I finished it. This book is on Audible, and I definitely recommend going that route if you do plan on reading this book, because there's so much medical jargon that it's kind of hard to wrap your head around. But if you have it narrated to you, then you're able to get through it a little bit quicker, at least in my opinion. But I do recommend reading this book because it just goes to show you how the healthcare system don't take women's and women's health concerns seriously, because Susanna Cahalan went through hell, and if she would have had somebody listen to her from the start, things might have turned out differently for her. And that's all I'm going to say on that. But I do recommend reading this book because, like I said, it was very poignant, and this book has actually helped people that have the same condition as Susanna Cahalan get treatment. The next book that I have here is I Am Malala, the Girl Who Stood Up for Education and Was Shot by the Taliban. So this is another book that I do plan on reading at some point, just not physically. The next book that I have here is a classic, and I feel like it's going to cause more controversy possibly in the comments, and it is The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. Y'all, I have tried to read this book 3 times, 3 separate times, and tell me why I fell asleep every single time. Why did I fall asleep every single time? I have no idea, but this book is so boring, at least in the beginning. And I know that it gets better. At least that's what people have told me. They're like, just stick it out. Once you get past the first couple of chapters, the book is so good. And I believe y'all, but I just physically cannot do it. So maybe this is another book where I need to actually just listen to the audiobook for it, because reading this physically has put me to sleep multiple times. So I'm just gonna get rid of this. I don't know when or if I will end up picking this up at some point, but I'm really sad about it because I know a lot of people love The Great Gatsby, and I know that this is a book that is required reading for so many people, but I never had to read this in high school, surprisingly. But I just can't get into it. It was just so dry and so boring. And it breaks my heart because so many people rave about this book and say it's so good. And like I said, I believe y'all, but I just can't get past the first chapter. I can't. The next book that I have here is a thriller, and it is The Chain by Adrienne McKenty. So I read this book, I want to say last year or the year before Adrienne McKenty started to really gain a lot of popularity after writing The Island, which is one of my favorite thrillers of all time. I actually need to get a physical copy of that book because I love that one so much more than I love The Chain. Now, I did enjoy this book. I gave it, I think, like a 3.5 or a 4 out of 5 stars. And like I said, I enjoyed it, but I do agree with the majority of readers that the ending and the last half of this book is very unserious and very goofy, and it kind of feels detached from the first and second half of the book, which is unfortunate because I feel like this story started out really strong, but once we got towards the end, it started to fall apart. So I will be unhauling this, but if you haven't read The Island by this author, I recommend picking that up because that book is one of the best survival thriller / horror books I've ever read in my life, and I still think about that book to this day. That's actually going to be turned into a Hulu adaptation or like a Netflix adaptation. I'm not sure which one, but that will be a movie or a series at some point, and I can't wait to watch. The next book that I have here is One Italian Summer by Rebecca Searle or Surley. I know Rebecca Searle or Surley is the author of In 5 Years. I tried to read that book a couple of years ago and I just couldn't get into it. Another book that I found that was really boring in my opinion, so I just wasn't interested, and so I unhauled that. And then I got sent this book by, I think, the publisher, which I really appreciate, but this book explores grief and losing a parent, and I just don't want to be in that headspace, nor do I want to read a book like that. So I will be unhauling this, but I love the cover and I have heard great things about this book from people who have read it. The next book that I have here is another thriller, and it is Girl Forgotten by Karen Slaughter. So this is probably going to be a surprise for some of my OG subscribers because I talked about this book in one of my older TBR videos, and I was so excited to read this book, especially because I've never read Karen Slaughter before because her books are really intense and graphic and violent. I tried to read this book and the chapters are so long and it starts off so slow. And one thing about me, I don't like slow burn thrillers. I don't. You have to be an author that I truly love in order for me to even give it a try, and I haven't read anything by Karen Slaughter before, so unfortunately she's not an author that I love, so I'm not really willing to read a slow burn thriller from her or from anyone really. Sorry y'all, my camera died as usual, so I forgot where I last left off. Overall, unhauling this because the chapters are really long and it's just too slow paced for me. And even though this book is a standalone, I did hear from a lot of people that you should read another one of her books before you read this one because the character in this book appears in that book and you get more background and context on her character, and I just like don't want to do that, you know what I mean? Like I just don't. So I'm getting rid of this one, but hopefully there is a Karen Slaughter book out there that I will enjoy. I just don't know which one it is and I don't know when I'll pick it up. Okay y'all, we're almost done. The next book that I have here is The Family Tree by Steph Mullen and Nicole Mabry. So this one I am really still kind of on the fence about getting rid of just because I have not read this yet and I still want to, but I did something really stupid one day. I flipped to the last couple of chapters of the book and of course with my luck I landed on the page where the killer was revealed. Don't ask me how that happened and how I was able to manage that, but I did. So I already know who the killer is, but I obviously don't know what led them to do what they did. But like at this point, I don't know if I really care because I already know who did it, you know what I mean? So I think I might end up getting rid of this one just because I already know the killer reveal, but I don't know. I'm still on the fence about this one, but I am more so leaning towards the unhaul side because, yeah. Okay, and the last book that I have here is a thriller, and it is The Sundown Motel by Simone St. James. So I actually read this book back in October for my spooky season TBR, and I rated this a 4 out of 5 stars and I really enjoyed it. I loved the paranormal aspect of this book as well as the social commentary, but I just don't see myself reading this again. Like most people, I don't typically reread thrillers, so I just don't have the need or the desire to keep this on my bookshelf, and it wasn't one of my favorite thrillers. Like I enjoyed it, but it wasn't one of my favorites like No Exit or Local Woman Missing. So I am going to unhaul this, but I am going to read more by Simone St. James in the near future. I think I'm going to read the Book of Cold Cases next, or maybe what's that other book she came out with, Broken Girls, something like that. And I think she actually is coming out with a new book in 2023, or it's going to be republished. Either way, I will be reading more by Simone St. James. I just don't need to keep this book on my shelf. Whew. All right y'all, and those are all of the books that I plan on unhauling, and I feel like this was a success because I have never unhauled this many books before, and usually I kind of drag my feet and I hem and haul and stall on trying to unhaul books because I love, you know, my library, and I don't like seeing empty space on my bookshelves, but at the end of the day I need to make room for the new books that I have on my TBR cart and also just in general, and I need to pass on these books to other homes where they will get more use from their owners than I will, just because like I said, I either already read some of these books or I just plan on listening to them via Audible. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know that this was a bit chaotic and a little all over the place and definitely different than the unhauls that I have filmed on my channel before, but like I said, I wanted to switch it up, spice it up. And also I meant to mention that some of these books I might sell on my Pango Books account. Definitely make sure you check out the link in my description box either way because I might list some of them. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Definitely make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps me my channel out. And lastly, please make sure you follow me on Bookstagram as well as Storygraph. I will leave all of that information linked down below, as well as at the end of the video like I always do. I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!